I feel like a Marco Rubio moment there. We have to make sure that in this town that is experiencing the worst drought on record, and we're prepared for it because of the work we've done collectively. We consume the same amount of water today that we did 30 years ago with 1 million more people. And if you don't have an aerator on your faucet, we'll give you one free. Talk to Jill Barad. You want a better toilet? She'll give you $150 for it and get you a low-flow toilet that'll help us save water. You want to switch out your grass? DWP, we just increased from $150. We'll pay you $2 a square foot to put California-friendly plants in there. And we've got to clean up the aquifer here in the San Fernando Valley that has been polluted for too long and unpave certain parts of the city so we can, instead of washing water out to the storm drains and seeing hundreds of millions of gallons go out to the ocean, put it back here in the San Fernando Valley and end our dependence on foreign water that costs us all a lot of money. For the first time, I got the federal government to step up, and Lucy Jones, kind of known as Earthquake Lucy, Dr. Jones, the best earthquake expert probably in the country, is working for this city and for all of you this year. On loan from the federal government to come up with a plan to strengthen our vulnerable buildings so we don't lose lives in the next earthquake, to make sure that our water and our communications infrastructure don't go down when the next big one hits, so we can put out those fires and our emergency responders can talk to each other. So safety, from emergency preparedness to fire to police, is on the move. But we know too that we have to make sure that this is a livable city, a place that we're not stuck in traffic, a place where the roads aren't crumbling, a place where we have the ability to make sure that our main streets are vibrant again. So my first executive order was to launch something called the Great Streets Initiative. It built on my experience as a council member. When I took areas of my former district, places like Silver Lake and Echo Park and Atwater Village, which I always thought reminded me of the San Fernando Valley, places that the main streets had become thoroughfares instead of places that people would walk to or bike to or drive a couple blocks to get something to eat or go shopping. And by concentrating our traffic improvements and our paving and our local art and landscaping, we help those local businesses in each neighborhood be more self-sustaining, which means fewer people have to drive outside the neighborhood, which means a healthier economy, which means more jobs, but it also means great neighborhoods. And so we'll have the first 3 or 4 of them this year. We had over 190 submissions from community groups and other elected officials and others. And we're going to do a handful of them each year, hopefully for these 8 years, to see those backbones of communities come back. You know, we know what that means to have a great stretch of Ventura Boulevard, and we know the ones that need help. We know what it's like when we can get a main boulevard to be a welcoming place where we say, hey, maybe we'll stay in the neighborhood tonight instead of driving outside of it. On transit, we broke ground on the Crenshaw line, which I will get to LAX. We're going to finally get rail to our airport. We'll announce tomorrow, but I'll give you the breaking news that we got $670 million from the federal government. I've traveled a couple times to lobby for this, for a regional connector, which will allow lines that start in the valley without getting up and changing seats and switching stations downtown to go straight east-west and north-south, so you can go from Pasadena to Long Beach, to make our public transit system finally begin to work. And we've got to be smarter about our public transportation projects. Instead of doing things like widening the 405 freeway, which is like finding a slightly bigger sponge to throw into the ocean and wondering why it's waterlogged, and actually drilling a tunnel, or figuring out a way to get through this cold little pass so you could be from Sherman Oaks to UCLA in 10 minutes. Those projects have to start moving now. They require years of planning and engineering, and I have already determined to make sure that that gets done. I've had somebody on the 405 project since the day I was elected, so that we can at least scoot up by a couple months the opening, hopefully, of the 405, which has been, I know, a nightmare for all of us. And we need a valley line that goes from north to south, that links to that Sepulveda Pass, so that we have options with a very successful orange line to finally have transit here in the valley. You pay for the Measure R tax increase in the sales tax. You deserve to have those dollars spent here in the valley too. So that's the livability. The last piece is probably the area I spend most of my time on, which is how do we make a prosperous city? And it's not easy as a mayor. I don't wave a magic wand and create jobs. I can only inspire, I can only create the conditions for the private sector to come in and to bring jobs to Los Angeles. But we're the city with the highest unemployment rate of any big city in America. And I knew that this was the area I wanted to focus the most on. And so I'm going to spend a couple minutes on that, and then I'll open it up from there. For economic growth, Los Angeles was always synonymous with, I think, the best place for many years to open a business and to find a good job. Today, that's not the case. I just saw a poll actually today from Loyola Marymount University that said how do we feel about our city services and what things are we doing well. EMS was at the top, our trash and recycling, and our fire department was very high. What we do worse was our basic infrastructure, our sidewalks and our streets. And what people thought was the worst right now was the ease of finding a good job in this economy. We changed that, I think, by doing a number of things. One, we have to make sure that people know that this city is open for business again. And that starts from the top. I spend time, again, anonymous time, picking up the phone or sitting face-to-face with business leaders every single week in my office, thanking a local business owner who owns a shop in San Pedro, hearing about a new cosmetics company that started here in the Valley that's rapidly expanding but can't get a high-speed internet connection, and troubleshooting to make sure that they can grow their company and create jobs. Sitting down with folks who lead some of our largest companies in the region and in the city, HealthNet out in Woodland Hills, telling the story of how many new jobs are being created because of the expansion of healthcare, 300 to 400 new jobs, and making sure that they know if they run into a problem that City Hall is here to help. But we're not just doing that in a shotgun approach. We're focusing on key industries. I only have so much time. My team only has so much time. So we want the most bang for the buck. When I came to you before, during the debate, I said I was going to focus on Hollywood and bringing filming jobs back. From the first day I've done that, we appointed our first film czar, Tom Sherrick, a dear, dear friend who really moved the ball forward, God rest his soul, who passed away a couple weeks ago. Ken Ziffrin, who's probably the finest entertainment lawyer in the city, has stepped into that role and will continue that momentum, and I'm confident this year we will see Sacramento expand the state film tax credits to bring more filming home. But I've always said to bring more filming back is going to be a combination of state tax credits and good old-fashioned Jewish guild. So I've been sitting down with a lot of studio heads, friends who run and make the decisions on shows and saying, come on, you can get a show or two here. And already we have shows that have made the decision to start here. I just got off the phone yesterday with the head of DirecTV, which, like Netflix and others, are starting to produce their own shows. And a new show called Navy Streets is going to be filming right here in Venice, because we reached out and figured out ways to shave off the costs, even without as generous a tax credit as other states. People want to be back here. They don't want to be separated from their family. They know the best crews are here, and they want to be where filming is the very best in Los Angeles. We're focusing on aerospace too, which is big here in the Valley, to make sure for the first time we pay attention to an industry that didn't disappear. It was cut after the Cold War, but it's still a top 5 industry and a great job generator. We have an advisory council on aerospace. So it's those older industries that need a little love, like filming and aerospace. That's one sector. The second area is the emerging new industries that are going to be part of the future economy, like green technology. We've got great electric trolley maker out here in the Valley who I spent time with, who are making electric trolleys around the world, manufactured right here in the San Fernando Valley. When you think we don't do manufacturing anymore, we're actually the manufacturing capital of America, and we're seeing new manufacturing grow in this city. In fashion, which we're seeing emerge as a great industry here. In digital information technology, Silicon Beach isn't just in Venice and Santa Monica, it's here in the Valley, it's downtown, it's in other places, and we're creating one new firm every 40 minutes. Firms like Snapchat, which just refused a $3 billion takeover offer from Google. I don't know if that makes them smart or not so smart, but they're right here in Los Angeles. I think it makes them really smart, and they're going to hold out and grow and maybe be the next big thing, and that's coming out of Los Angeles. I sat down with university presidents for the first time, convening them from Cal State Northridge and Caltech and UCLA and USC and Occidental and the community colleges to get together to talk about retaining our engineers. As I mentioned, we graduate more than Stanford and Berkeley combined, but 70% of them are leaving LA. How do we keep them here so those ideas and those opportunities stay in LA? So in new industries, we're focusing as well. And then there's some industries that we've never told the story of that are here that are great. Financial services, we've got $3 trillion in assets that people manage here in groups like the Capital Group downtown, the largest such company in the world. Hedge funds, investors, private equity firms that really create good jobs, but we've got to tell that story. We've got to tell the story of our emerging leadership as a tourist destination. We're the most visited city now, more than New York, in America. And I've set a goal after breaking the record this year of 42.2 million visitors, of 50 million visitors by 2020. When we open up Harry Potter exhibition, we invest in more hotels downtown, we'll be able to bring more people who are spending increasingly more and more money, especially overseas visitors from Asia who are coming here and spending 85% of what all the tourists spend. That's why it's so important to fix up LAX, not just the brand new terminal, which is the finest terminal now in North America, bar none, but we've still got 8 other crappy ones that we've got to fix up. Rail is part of it, but we've already moved 2 forward, and I'm determined to move at least 5 or 6 of those 8 and completely renovate them so that, a handful of years from now, you'll look and say LAX is world class again. So the economic growth is about making sure we invest in those key industries. And one last thing I want to tell you about is a very important initiative to me that I'd love your help with. I want to make sure that we're training our young people and those who are out of work, or returning veterans, or homeless folks, or people getting out of our criminal justice system, but especially our youth, for the jobs of the future. I'll give you a very harrowing set of statistics. One is that our high-wage jobs are actually increasing in Los Angeles, and our lower-wage jobs, the rate is decreasing compared to our high-wage jobs. But our poverty rate is higher now than it was 5 years ago. So I kind of looked at those and I said, how is that possible that we have more high-wage jobs but our poverty rate is up? Well, we looked at it, it's because people who grow up here in Los Angeles aren't getting the jobs that are being created in Los Angeles. In other words, our education system is so unaligned that they're not being the ones hired by Silicon Beach. It's somebody from another city, it's somebody from another state or another country coming in and getting those great jobs. I think we can change that. I think I can change that with your help. And so this summer, we're starting a new initiative that was based on last summer's experience. That 10,000 youth in this city came to our city program saying, I want to work this summer, and they got turned away. We said, sorry, there's not enough jobs. That's wrong. In a city like Los Angeles, we can find 10,000 jobs to give kids for 2 months, $2,000, learn the value of work, learn how to present themselves in a workplace, how to do a job interview, how to attend their resumes, to become really ready for the global economy, to learn the technology skills they need, the vocational training. So this summer, we're going to hire 10,000 more youth, and it's not going to be easy. It's a $20 million undertaking. But if your company or somebody you know who owns a business can take 1 kid this summer, let my staff know. If you can take 2 or 5 or 10, let us know. Because I want to make sure that we have years of investing in these young people. Instead of getting into trouble, instead of dropping out, instead of being part of the problem, they're going to be part of driving this city forward. And this summer will be the first kickoff of that, and I need your help. So let Max or anybody else in my office know, and we'll move that forward. And the last thing is we're going to look at where we can get investment. And you'll see me travel abroad. You always get criticized as a mayor when you travel. I promise you these are not junkets and they're not fun trips. It's back to back every single day. The first one you may have read about is going to be down in Mexico, and this fall I'll probably go to Asia. But I'm telling you, this weekend was a $2 billion weekend for Los Angeles. We had a groundbreaking north of the Staples Center of a project called Metropolis, which is funded by Chinese investors. It's going to be wonderful, taking over an empty lot, putting some hotel rooms to keep more folks who are going to conventions there instead of causing us all traffic, helping our convention center be stronger. And then this weekend, you might have seen on the news, we broke a record. We established a Guinness Book of World Record, had the longest continuous concrete pour in human history. I didn't know that was a category in the Guinness Book, but I guess it is. We had 2,200 truck trips for what will be the tallest building west of the Mississippi, where the Wilshire Grand used to be. That's funded by Korean investment, Korean Air. It's a real headquarters for them here. 11,500 jobs while it's being built, a permanent 1,600 jobs when it's finished. That was $2 billion in just one weekend. And there isn't a week that goes by where I'm not personalizing the relationship with those key decision makers from Latin America, from the Middle East, from Asia, who want to come to LA, but if they know the mayor, they feel the confidence of coming here and creating jobs and moving forward. So those 3 things of making a safe, livable, prosperous, and the best run city, I hope you all will get involved in those initiatives. We're changing the way that we do budgeting this year too. And instead of asking you a few cynical questions at the end of an already drafted budget, we've been holding town halls around the city. We had one at Porter Ranch here. Hundreds of people have come out for them. Can't tell you how amazing. Well, I thought nobody would come. We had 450 people in South LA come and break into small groups and say what they wanted to see in their neighborhood, what they wanted to see in their city, and then how would you measure the success? What is the measure of saying, well, I want better sidewalks? Well, what does that look like? I can't do them all overnight. Is it a 10% increase? Is it 5 miles in your neighborhood? And really pushing people to act like a policymaker with me. And we're going to give you tools that will roll out in the next few weeks where you'll be able to go online and play with our budget. So you can feel what it feels like to be us. What would you cut? How would you keep our labor costs down? How would you look at our pensions? What would you do in terms of our programs? This is not going to be a year of growth because we lag 1 year from the economy, even though we're seeing the economy pick up. Remember, our receipts come in basically a year late. But I assure you, if we can hold the line and keep the fiscal discipline that I want to make sure we have, show ourselves to be well managed, continue pension reform, continue with our great city employees to look at where we can cut costs with technology, we will have a year or two from now the ability to say, how can we restore our fire services? How can we trim more trees? How can we begin to pave our streets? And that will show the best run city in America finally has arrived. So I thank you for your trust in me. I thank you for your participation in advance, because I will need you, whether it's jumpstarting our economy or helping get involved in your neighborhood. And I thank SOHA for really standing up and setting the bar. And I promise you, I'll continue coming back here. You tell me what I'm doing wrong, you tell me what we're doing great, and together we'll make this not just a big city, but a truly great city once again. Thank you so much.
All right, so we have a few questions. We have actually quite a few questions. Just so some of you folks know, some of your questions will not be asked tonight because some of them I cannot read. You have lousy writing. Some of them don't apply to the mayor. They are council questions, and we'll forward those on to the council member. And some of them we just may run out of time. So it's not that your question is not the absolute best.
If there's mayoral questions, you can hand them to us, and we'll try to answer them for people out there.
Yes, and just so you know, Mr. Mayor, I'm not asking these questions. They're not mine. So I'm gonna call the person's name. Most. No, I didn't this time. But I'm gonna call the person's name. If you can stand up, so that way he can address you, or at least raise your hand. That way he can address you instead of me. Okay. So the first question, I'm actually taking out of order. I had a little bit of method of this madness, but we were talking about keeping jobs and bringing jobs to the city. Patricia Hurst. Recently, a few major oil companies have left Los Angeles. Now, as a stakeholder of Occidental, she read that they are leaving town as well. Have you called them? What's happening with that?
Yes, I have, and I had heard for a long time that they were probably, after Ray Irani was no longer the CEO, that they were going to move. Most of their operations are in Houston, their physical operations, and we heard this was coming for a long time, long before I was even elected, and I've been in regular contact with them. And the good news, possibly, is that they're keeping most of the California operations in a spin-off. So in terms of the job impact here, I'm very determined to make the case to hopefully keep them in the Los Angeles area, hopefully in the city of LA, for those jobs that are here today, basically. A few folks will go to Houston on the consolidation. That's where they have most of their petrochemical operations, and most of their oil and gas stuff is there. But they are very intent on keeping the California stuff strong, and I think LA should make the cases why they should stay here. I also, I think we focus a lot, and it's often one of those measures that people say how many Fortune 500 companies we used to have and how many we do have. The real job growth is in the small and medium-sized business. That said, I'm not going to take any lead and not chase it. When I heard that Northrop, left its headquarters here, the CEO told me later on that nobody from LA had even picked up the phone. He heard from one congressman, but nobody had said, please stay. He said, it wouldn't have changed our decision. We needed to, because most of the contracts are in Washington now, consolidate there. But it just showed how little goes on. And it reminded me of an experience I had here with an aerospace CEO who, during the campaign, I started convening this aerospace roundtable before I was elected. And he said, it's easier for me to get a meeting in the San Fernando Valley with the governor of Texas than it is to get a local city official to even pay attention to me. Thank you for showing up. We'll lose some, we'll win some, but I guarantee you I'm a mayor that is out there hustling every single lead. Look, I might only land 1 out of 10 movies and TV series, but each one of those is $30+ million. And I would love to work with you. So absolutely, we're in touch. We're scheduling a sit down with the Occidental folks to see what we can do to preserve as many of those jobs.
Thank you. Mike Sherman and Wilma, can you stand up or raise your hand? Wilma's here. Wilma, Mike Sherman, back there. Okay, these are both very similar questions. They both know and love the fact that you're Mr. Techie Mayor, okay? But they're both sick and tired of traffic. And they're sick and tired of, Wilma, for instance, traveled 8 miles today along Burbank Boulevard and only hit 1 green light. So the question is, why can't something be done to synchronize lights?
So there are almost no timed lights in the city anymore, automatically timed. They're almost all on a system now, which takes in data real time and then changes according to what the traffic is. Now you'll experience those experiences like you had here today, because when it gets to capacity, there's no synchronization that will allow it to free flow. At the same time, nobody has monopoly at the Department of Transportation on the exact algorithm or the exact system to do that dynamic changing of the lights. So where you have those, let us know so we can tell those engineers, look, you may think we have the right algorithm, you may think we have the right system, and let's figure out how to do it. There are a few, maybe like 5% of the lights now in the city that are not part of the system, the ATSAC system. But if you ever want to come down and tour it, I'd be happy to bring you both of the folks who asked the question so you can see. They can actually turn on that area. I see you continue to shake your head. I want you to see it so you can give them the feedback because they need to hear from you those things. But they can help tweak that and to make sure. I don't know if you're shaking because you think it's not part of the system or because... Sorry? No, well, no, I've seen it. No, well, I've seen it with my eyes. So we can. Well, let's test it together and see if they're actually lying. I appreciate that. But we have a system now that has, I know, more sensors than any place in the country. If they're not being used the right way, let's make sure. Department of Transportation right now is one of those general managers where we have an open position and we're doing a nationwide search. Part of whom I want to bring in is a man or woman who understands the technology side of this, because I think there's three things that can alleviate or mitigate traffic right now. One is using technology correctly. Two is building up more self-sufficient villages so neighborhoods aren't about needing to cross town to get everywhere, but we have the services, the restaurants, the things we want, so we have more local options. And three is helping with public transit. We don't have much road capacity we can add. I mean, look at the 405. We're going to try to, but that doesn't really do much. So those three things are where I'm going to focus my time and energy, and let me know. We'll follow up, let Max know, and I'd be happy to at least get the intersection so we know and we can get some accountability for you on that.
Okay. The next series of questions all have to do with one of your favorite topics and one of our biggest thorns in San Fernando Valley's sides. Gay Nelson, you want to stand up? Leo Rosen, John Glutier, thank you, sorry. Bob Smithson, another one from Wilma. I usually don't ask her questions at all. And then Charles Baker. I'm just kidding, Wilma. Charles is right up front here. All these questions have to do with the Department of Water and Power. All these questions have to do with the, and again, I'm not going to go through each question, but I should. But they all have to do with, you know, the not being responsible to the ratepayers. These folks have, for the last several billing cycles, about 6 or 8 months, my DW bill has gone from an average of $400 and $450 to $550 to $650. Folks are fed up, and I write a little article for the Sherman Oaks Studio City Encino News that goes in the back as a real estate agent. I do these little stories. And the last issue, I wrote an article for that little section about how folks are calling me today. 3 out of my last 4 listing appointments have been folks that are selling their homes because they can't afford their Department of Water and Power bills. Selling their homes, that's pathetic. I wrote this article just from a little article, and the editor of the newspaper called me up and says, "Matt, I'm going to put it on the front page because my grass is brown because I can't afford my bills anymore." It's horrible. When this article ran a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I've been writing for this newspaper for 6 years, 7 years, and I rarely get any responses. Thanks, guys. But this time, I got dozens and dozens of way to go, you hit the nail on the head. The Department of Water and Power, you touched on this, is our utility. The ratepayers own it. But something has to be done, and I know that was a big topic of yours during the election. So, again, that's not my question, I just kind of editorialized it a little bit. These are the rest of you folks that asked the question.
I really appreciate all of those because this is going to be a long fight. It's going to be one that I am determined to see through. I'm going to need your support, and I do feel the public support behind me on this because people are so fed up. But let me drill down a little bit more into what I started talking about in my opening remarks about how we're going to get there. First of all, it's having important leadership at the top, not just one person. I already told you about Marcy Edwards. I think she gets it. She's tough, she understands, and she's actually run not just the power side, but she also was the vice chair of the Metropolitan Water District, so she knows water. She was the acting head of the ISO, which is the distribution system for the state of power. And she's run a utility, Anaheim Water and Power, that actually got very good customer reviews. And she used to be head of customer service years ago at DWP when it was much better. And so she kind of gets all the aspects of the business. But it's also the board, not just Melvine, but we have Jill Banks-Brad who's here, it was important for me to have somebody from neighborhood councils and somebody from the valley that could put in there. William Funderburg, who really knows water and is a great fighter, another neighborhood council member. All the 5 people that are on your commission now are real advocates, and they're not shrinking violence. I mean, I think early on, when we're trying to get to the bottom, for instance, of where the money is being spent on those 2 nonprofits, the Joint Safety and Joint Training Institute, they're drilling in and not taking no for an answer, saying we're not going to pay the bills till we get this. That should have been a one-day story. We should have been able to find out if there's nothing to hide. You know, we should have participation on both sides, in the department, in the union. This is where the money's being spent. We're for safety. We're for well-trained workers. If it's being spent responsibly, let's see it. And we're going to continue, and thank you, Ron Galpern, who's issued subpoenas. Mike Fuhrer, I mean, we have a chain City Hall. Trust me, I've been there a long time. I'm the longest elected official now at City Hall, if you can believe it. As scary as that sounds to you and me. We now, I've seen for 12 years, a controller who would fight with the city attorney who would try to embarrass the mayor. Like, the 3 of us are in sync. We hold press conferences together, we have private meetings together, we had our Delhi summit at Brent's that we talked about early on, where we all came together, and we really are working to get to the bottom of this. Success to me will look like a few things. One, we've got this building debacle has to be fixed immediately. Marcy knows that. She's coming in to look at that. We have people who are not being billed at all, people who are being overbilled right now. That has to be fixed in the short term. The customer service wait times are absolutely unacceptable. I don't know how many of you have tried calling, but my father was on hold for 40 minutes. 40 minutes. He might have even had longer. We're going to bring that down. We're already bringing it down some, but we are making the changes literally as I speak with the customer service leadership. And Marcy's doing that. She's not even there yet. She starts March 1st, and she's already changing that. To allow you to get things like, if it is a 20-minute wait on those days where there's a peak, in the first 2 minutes you should get an automated, hey, would you like us to call you back as soon as it's free? So you can go do something and then call you back. So we already have implemented that reverse one. It's now 7 minutes, so you get that message. I'd like you to get that earlier so we can get you doing what you should be doing, and it's fine to call back a little bit later. So billing, hold time, greater sunlight and accountability from top to bottom. And I asked for a baseline survey that this commission has moved forward with that will compare DWP to other utilities. What do we pay versus other utilities? What do we charge versus other utilities? Now, some people might be moving out on our water rates, on our power rates. They're generally, but not for everybody, but they're generally quite a bit lower than the private utilities around. So everybody's suffering in Southern California. Combination of drought and state regulations. That's the biggest driver of the increase of your bill, probably 60 to 80% of it. But that doesn't mean the 20 to 40% that we can control shouldn't be accountable, and that we shouldn't be looking at ways to reduce that. And the last piece is I want to see a greener utility that helps you have a lower bill. And you might say, well, if the rates are going up, how can I have a lower bill? Well, in the same way that we're consuming the same amount of water today that we did 30 years ago with 1 million more people, we waste water, we waste electricity, and I want this utility to be your friend in going in there and helping you in your home to bring those bills down, even as rates go up. And that is the cheapest way. It's much cheaper than investing in a wind farm or building a giant solar farm and getting the power lines here. Is actually reducing the amount of excess power that we waste, the amount of water that we waste. That's why we have programs to help you switch out if you want some of your landscape and things like that. This has to be a forward-looking utility again. So I appreciate it. You are not alone. Rates will not stop going up, because even if I gave, and I'm, even if we're able to pay nobody at DWP next year, we have state mandates on what's called once-through cooling. These are the power plants along the coast, which we now can't, it's endangering marine life, and that increases our power bill for about 30% now because of the mandates of that. And then we have to have greener energy, which is a good thing, but it comes from the state, that's about another 30%. So you'll see rates still go up somewhat, but if we can work to reduce our bills, that is a mission accomplished. Accountable, open, transparent, and well-led utility is my goal, and I really appreciate that. I will not let up on this. This is not a beginning of the administration thing. This will be something I fight for 8 years, and I hope to deliver way before that some real good results.
All right, then thank you. Just to follow up on that same Avo Barbarian, Bobby? He has a net zero house, and he just wants to let people know that he generates more energy than he uses, and now he has a water efficient house as well, and his water bill is zero. And he wants to find out.
And you look well showered and clean and everything. It's amazing.
He wants to find out what policy changes can the city do to help.
So I've asked the department to double what it's doing on conservation work, on the outreach, on the education, on helping people. I mentioned some of the ways that you can reduce that. We'll give you things for your faucets. We'll help you switch out your toilets. We're looking at retaining and recycling water. I just did a meeting on this. I've asked there's 3 pipes in our water system. Water supply from DWP, storm drains for when your excess runoff and rain goes, and our sewers. Sanitation Bureau takes those 2, and DWP takes water supply. I'm going to be integrating these to come up with a one water plan that will allow us by 2024 to reduce that dependence on foreign water by a significant percentage. We're going to drill in exactly how much. But in other words, the second biggest aquifer in California, natural or man-made, we're sitting on top of right now. It's called the San Fernando Valley. But we take about 50% of the water that we need gets wasted every day, washed out to the ocean. A combination of the storm drains and the treated sewage, which then goes back into the storm drains and out through the LA River, usually to the ocean. How can we do that? Orange County recycles its water right now. And way back, I'll say the dirty word it was called, toilet to tap, which everybody said, ew, and I don't want, is what Orange County does right now. It's been rebranded. It's called showers to flowers now. So it's not fun. And the idea is, this is what water does naturally. You treat water. It's already safe enough to release into the LA River, and there's fish, and goes into the Santa Monica Bay, and it meets all federal clean water requirements. Why not re-infiltrate that in places like the Tujunga Basin, maybe by Sepulveda Dam? Those places where we can re-infiltrate the waters, we clean up the pollution in the San Fernando Valley aquifer and have our water right here. So those are some of the ways we're going to be having local. There's also one last thing, a test pilot. You probably do this in your home, where the Hollywood beautification team is taking trash bins that we all have that are blue and green and black. There's now a beige trash bin for some of our residents that has a hole on top and a faucet at the bottom, and you can hook it up straight to your spouts on the roof, and the drainage spouts, and you can retain, when it rains, all your water. So we're going to look at growing that. We're trying to get a grant from the state for $2 million to bring it to more neighborhoods, and we would love to partner maybe with SOHA and see if we could bring some of that to the Sherman Oaks.
Love it, thank you. That tap on the shoulder that I had means that from Max, I have 2 more questions. So because we're not going to get to all your questions, it's not my fault, it's Max's fault. No, the mayor has another obligation tonight, so that's why.
I'll be honest what it is. I take care of a 2-year-old from about 9 o'clock on, so I have the night shift, so your indulgence I appreciate.
All right, so I love these types of questions, and again, they're not big questions as far as what some of you folks might think, DWP or this or that, but these are 2 completely different questions on the same issue. One is a question as far as a problem, and the other one actually has the answer, which is kind of cool, and I want your comment on it. The first one from Linda Weitzler. Steve Lopez of Los Angeles Times wrote a wonderful article about Homeboy Industries and Gregory Boyle, and said that that they are financially in trouble. And she asks, is there anything that the city can do? So then Ken Newman, Ken, are you here? Ken? Okay, good. Ken Newman says, prior to 1961, the Fashion Square, which you used to play in, across the street was the McKinley home for orphan boys. Any chance we can get a Homeboy Industry outlet at the mall to honor the tradition of charity to go to the next shopping at the Fashion Square Mall? So it's kind of an interesting play, but your comment on Homeboy, Mr. Homeboy?
The city does do stuff. We opened up our cafe, our restaurant space in City Hall. Now if you go to City Hall, the one place you can get food in City Hall is actually a Homeboy cafe now. We've helped contribute. They're part of our GRID system, which is the Gang Reduction Youth Development System. The article you may have read recently, I don't know if it was the Lopez column or a different article I read in the last week, said their business model isn't set up necessarily to make money, but they're trying to increasingly move that way because they've always overemployed, 2 or 3 times what a normal business would have. That's the point. Get somebody off the street, teach them work, and hopefully they won't return to that way of life. And whether it's out here, I know they're looking to expand. They need help to do it though, because they again, are not yet self-sustaining businesses. It's a combination usually of community support and what the business earns. So if this was something the community wanted to take on and actually do, I think it would be wonderful. I'd love to make the introduction, but they're not yet at the place where they can just open up franchises and make money yet, because they're still, you know, that's their mission. Father Greg says he doesn't want to turn somebody away. Nothing stops a bullet like a job is kind of his trademark. And I think for all of us, we know that the best investment we can make, even if it costs us something up front, is to make sure we're not paying for somebody $80,000 a year to be in prison, not paying for the cost to us when crimes are committed, not paying for the cost, you know, the social costs that come from that crime. So one of my goals is, we won't be able to do it this year because of the budget, but one of my goals is to expand our gang and youth intervention programs. I think they've been really successful in a national model, but there's a lot more we can do, and there's too many areas of the city that are cut off from that. And you know, the reason why is you have to make these decisions. So in the Valley, there's only one grid zone. Well, we know there's gang members and troubled youth throughout the San Fernando Valley. And you know, there's no reason North Hollywood or Canoga Park shouldn't have some sort of program. There's no reason why we can't have that integration in different communities. So I didn't actually know that history of Fashion Square, but I'd be more than happy to connect you with Father Greg and see if there's vacant space there and it's something we could do. You know, Homeboy is in a lot of the farmers markets now. I don't know if they're in your farmers market here, but we should look at seeing if we can bring them maybe as a start here in Sherman Oaks to the farmers market. I know that the Brentwood one and a couple others, but just let us know and we'll be happy to make those introductions and see if we can lead to something even bigger.
Okay, and one last question.
Yes.
David Elsky, are you here, David? Okay,
Hi,
perfect.
David.
Can some city offices be open before or after hours, become available for more people? Flex time for government employees? If so, do you think this would improve traffic on 101 and traffic and services for folks?
It's a good idea. We've tried a couple different things like this, more regional offices, but it was tough when we had cutbacks over the last 5 years. A lot of those regional offices closed. We're looking at, you may have heard yesterday, and I don't know what specific departments you're thinking of, but our building and safety and planning departments, if you ever try to do a home addition or work on a commercial property, it's been a nightmare. We launched yesterday a consolidation and a co-location of a lot of those, and a clarification of who's responsible for what, so people can know a little bit more clearly and have better customer service. And we sometimes had earlier hours, like you can go earlier right now to building and safety than normal working hours. I'm open to that. What's really tough is that we are so understaffed in all of our city departments, because you usually need 2 or 3 people that can cover each one of the things in a public counter that need to be done. If people can pick and choose, you almost lose those hours completely, because somebody will come and have to come back. It doesn't reduce traffic if they have to make 2 trips because the person who does plan check isn't there, only the person who does permit review. So if you have specific ones, I'm open to that. One of the things in broad terms I have asked all my general managers to look at is telecommuting. Can we implement a policy? And can we reward local employers that do the same thing? If you can show me that you have a certain percentage of your employees using public transit or telecommuting, could we help you? I'm on the MTA board now, get a discount on MTA, a tax credit back on our city's gross receipts tax, which I think we should wean ourselves off of and eliminate anyway. So those sorts of things could really help us address traffic as well. Was there a specific department that you're thinking of that is tough to get to during work hours? It was more the traffic impact piece that you want to do.
Code enforcement.
Yeah.
Code enforcement, instead of Monday through Friday, all the businesses that know in the evening they can go ahead and put their illegal signs out, and on the weekends they can do that and not get
I'll look into that. And if you have any other specific suggestions, we do a lot of things like sanitation. You'll see those big vector trucks who go in and clean up our sewers. They go 24 hours, different shifts. So let us know if there's other specific ones.
One final thing before
Yes.
you go. Jules has...
This is where I make a lot of enemies and one friend, huh?